My older sister entered the palace and became a noble consort. The emperor, knowing she loved another, cruelly betrothed me to the man she loved. When the imperial edict for our marriage arrived, my mother was forcing me to embroider my own wedding dress at home. The needle pricked my finger. I stared, transfixed at the welling bead of blood. I had never imagined that my future husband would be this man, the one I had always thought of as my brother-in-law. The emperor had decreed the marriage, and the Imperial Astronomical Bureau had chosen an auspicious date. To outsiders, it seemed a sign of the emperor's favor toward the prime minister's estate and the Marquis of Ningyuan's estate. But we knew the real reason. Ening, he is the son of heaven. He is forcing my hand. It was the first time I had ever seen my sister in such a hysterical state. She was crying and laughing, smashing everything she could get her hands on, completely devoid of the grace befitting a noble consort. I watched her quietly, letting her vent. When she finally calmed down, the conversation turned to me. Ening, I can't get out. I have failed Minjuan. But Minjuan is a man destined for greatness. He cannot be allowed to languish because of me. His Majesty is right. We are sisters and you know me best. Sister can only beg you to take my place and care for Minjuan. My sister was wrong. Though we were sisters, I didn't know her at all. I looked at her quietly. And what about me? My sister paused. Minjuan has watched you grow up since you were a child. He would never hurt you. A smile stretched across my face, but my heart was a desolate wasteland. Yet I was also thankful that what I sought was never love. On that day, with a magnificent procession, the bridal sedan chair wound its way through the long streets. I married Gu Minjuan. I knew he was a man of deep schemes and ruthless methods. To have inherited the title of Marquis of Ningyuan at such a young age, he must have employed countless iron-fisted tactics. I had personally seen him cut down a subordinate who betrayed him, and at the execution grounds, personally wield the blade to subject a corrupt official to death by 1,000 cuts. I also knew he was a man of deep passion. My sister had been frail since childhood. To save her, he had ridden 1,000 miles alone to find a rare herb, despite just returning from battle, covered in wounds. Upon his return, not wanting my sister to see his injuries and worry, he gave the medicine to our father and simply stood guard outside her door for a night. This man, who should have never crossed paths with me, had become my husband overnight. This was destined to be a marriage without expectations. Sitting in the blindingly red bridal chamber, I spent half the night clicking away at my abacus. Business at Lei Ju was booming, but King Feng Hall was in a slump. It was vexing. By the time Gu Minjuan came in, I had already changed and gone to bed. An embrace, cold from the night air, startled me from a restless dream. I opened my eyes to see Gu Minjuan's handsome face, flushed with drink. My Lord Marquis. I shot up from the bed in an instant, struggling out of his arms. He seemed very drunk, his hazy eyes watching me as I clutched the blanket tightly around myself. His moist lips parted slightly. Yanner, why did you go to sleep without waiting for me? A chill crept into my heart. My hands, gripping the blanket, tightened unconsciously, my knuckles turning white. My lord, you're drunk. I am not my sister. I am Rongning. Rongning. The desire in his eyes gradually faded. He shook his head and looked at me again by the flickering candlelight. My apologies. I've had too much to drink. I bit my lips silent, just wrapping the blanket tighter, my eyes wary. He noticed the vigilance in my gaze and finally just sighed. Go to sleep, Ening. I'll rest on the couch over there. Perhaps afraid I would misunderstand, he quickly added, it's our wedding night. If I were seen leaving you alone in the bridal chamber, it would be bad for your reputation. I said nothing, letting down the bed curtains and shrinking into a dark corner of the bed. Neither of us slept well that night. When I woke the next day, Gu Minjuan was already up. His back was to me as he dressed, his tall figure blocking most of the light from the window. I rolled over and lay on my stomach, watching him quietly. Perhaps because it was daylight, my fear of him began to fade. I had seen with my own eyes how he cherished my older sister. How passionately, how recklessly, how soul-stirringly. I also knew he was the most sought-after noble in the capital, a great hero of renowned military achievement, admired by countless women. But I could no longer muster any expectations for him. He and I were a perpetual stalemate. Since there were no expectations, I should face the days to come with more composure. He fastened his belt and turned to look at me. Seeing that I was awake and staring straight at him, he paused for a moment. Mother sent word that there's no need to pay respects this morning. You can sleep a little longer. His voice was very soft, just as it had been in the past when he and my sister would take me out to play, caring for me attentively. Little Inning can sleep a bit more. We'll wake you when it's time. Her ladyship is kind and caring, but as a junior, I cannot be arrogant because of her favor. With that, I called for my dowry maid, Cheng Bai, to come and help me dress. Gu Minjuan looked as if he wanted to say something but stopped. After he finished getting ready, he picked up a book and waited for me while he read. My sister was right. Gu Minjuan was, at his core, a good person. Aside from his drunken lapse last night, he would never let me be embarrassed. Old Madame Gu had long known about Gu Minjuan and my sister. She had always been fond of us both and had very much wanted my sister as her daughter-in-law. Seeing me, the sorrow in her eyes was unconcealable. After I served her tea, she took my hand and slipped the jade bracelet from her wrist onto mine. Thank you, mother. Good child. From now on, this is your home. I watched you grow up, and I will surely dote on you as if you were my own daughter. If Minjuan wrongs you in any way, you just come to me. I will stand up for you. I knew old Madame Gu meant well, but how could there be such kindness without reason? My mother's words before I left home flashed through my mind. Right, now that I was a Gu family wife, it was my duty to bear them children and continue their line. What old Madame Gu wanted was likely nothing more than that. At this thought, I couldn't help but look at Gu Minjuan, who was standing quietly to the side, his mind seemingly elsewhere. Sensing my gaze, he came back to himself. Rest assured, mother, I will take good care of Inning and not let her suffer any grievances. Suffer no grievances. I found it laughable. If I had any desire for him, then from the day I was to marry him, I was already full of grievances. Because of the wedding, the court had granted Gu Minjuan a 3-day leave. For the first 2 days, he didn't touch me. On the third night, he was about to go sleep on the couch as usual. I grabbed his sleeve. Inning, what is it? Gu Minjuan, do you want a child? What? The look of confusion froze on his face. Since I have married you, I will eventually have to bear you a child. His breath hitched, and he hastily pulled his sleeve from my grasp. Inning, you are still young. There is no rush for these things. Having asked such a question, I had already braced myself. To be rejected now was still somewhat humiliating. You don't want me to bear your child? It's all right, I can find you a concubine. Su Rongning. His sudden shout startled me. We've been married only 3 days, and you already want to find me a concubine. I didn't mean it like that. I belatedly realized I had said the wrong thing. His heart already belonged to someone else. Marrying me was already forced upon him. How could he tolerate another woman? I wanted to explain, but was at a loss for words, so I could only stare at him blankly. Seeing that he had frightened me, he was also at a loss. He reached out as if to touch me, but I flinched away. His hand froze in mid-air, and then he gave a bitter smile. Inning, you resent us, don't you? You should never have been dragged into this sordid mess, but alas, none of us could escape. I saw his eyes redden amidst his bitter smile. So be it, we were all pitiful souls. After that night, Gu Minjuan began sleeping in the study. I thought this was for the best. He would be at ease, and so would I. Old Madame Gu was in good health and managed the household, so I was happy to be idle. I spent most of my days at my shops. I had been managing Leiju, Qingfeng Hall, and Zui Xiangli since I was 15, and now, 3 years later, the results were remarkable. These were properties my uncle had secretly given me. He had originally given a share to my sister, but she didn't want it, so I took it all. My uncle was the wealthiest merchant in the land, and since I was a child, I had wanted to have as much silver as him. A woman engaging in business in public always attracted controversy. On my uncle's recommendation, I hired several managers and remained the boss behind the scenes. Very few people knew who I was, not even my own parents, only my sister. Gu Minjuan, naturally, would not know either. Gu Minjuan was busy with official duties day in and day out and was rarely home, so we hardly ever saw each other. Life wasn't much different from my days in the maiden's chambers. I wasn't a particularly cheerful person, but I had 1 or 2 close friends in the capital. Miss Qi Yun, the third daughter of Minister Qi, was my closest friend and one of the few who knew my secrets. After I married, she was the one who most often accompanied me to check on my shops, and she would also visit me at the estate to pass the time. Rongning, guess who I saw yesterday? I tilted my head back, concentrating on the kite string. Who else could possibly catch the eye of the great Miss Qi but a handsome young gentleman? Qi Yun laughed. This time, the handsome young gentleman is someone you know. Seeing the kite fly higher and higher, my heart soared and my voice became lighter. Just tell me, why be so mysterious? It was your cousin, Qin Xiuming. I froze for a moment. A gust of wind blew the kite off course, and I quickly pulled on the string. Cousin Qin has returned to the capital. The exam results are about to be announced, aren't they? You've always praised his talent. I'm sure he'll pass with high honors this time. As I stepped back, I bumped into a wall of flesh. The scent of bitter bamboo instantly enveloped me. I turned around in a hurry. My Lord Marquis, you're back. Gu Minjuan had a faint smile on his face. He nodded at Qi Yun, then looked at me. Ning is often bored at home. Miss Qi, please come and keep her company more often. Qi Yun winked at me. As long as Lord Gu cherishes Rongning, I can rest easy. With that, she quickly took her leave. I brought you some pastries you like from Chengjai Pavilion. I pursed my lips and smiled. Thank you, my lord. Work has been busy at the ministry lately, so I haven't had time for you. Is everything all right at home? Everything is fine. Mother takes good care of me. As I watched the kite high in the sky, I could feel Gu Minjuan's gaze on me. He was a little strange today. There wasn't much for us to talk about. A strong gust of wind snapped the kite string. Freed from its tether, the kite drifted away in an instant. He stood behind me, his hands clasped behind his back, his voice calm. Though freedom comes without tethers, one is at the mercy of the wind. The day the wind stills, one will fall to the dust. You make a good point, my lord. But his brow furrowed slightly. You were not so distant with me before. We are married now. Calling me my Lord Marquis is a bit too formal. The wind tousled the hair at my temples. He moved to reach for it, but I took a step back, avoiding him. My lord, you have fought for the country and achieved great merit. Calling you my Lord Marquis is a sign of respect. How could it be formal? He said no more, but his gaze on me grew deeper. I saw father-in-law at court today. He asked us to return to the Su family for a gathering tomorrow. I thought it was just an ordinary family dinner. But upon arriving, I learned that my sister was also back. She had been in the palace for 3 months and had won the emperor's favor. The emperor granted her almost every wish, so when she said she was homesick, he immediately allowed her to leave the palace. I couldn't ignore the way the man beside me tensed up the moment he saw my sister, nor could I turn a blind eye to my sister's reddened eyes. I calmly greeted my parents and my sister. Gu Minjuan, several times, looked as if he wanted to speak, his gaze never leaving my sister. I certainly hadn't forgotten the day the edict commanding my sister to enter the palace arrived. Gu Minjuan had desperately climbed the wall in the middle of the night to find her. The man who was always so composed and self-possessed had cried, his eyes red for the first time, wanting to elope with my sister regardless of the consequences. And I hadn't forgotten how, upon seeing me, who looked so much like her, standing beside her, he had blurted out that the Su family had more than one daughter. That since I looked so much like her, perhaps I could take her place. He said it wouldn't be the first time I had stood in for her. My sister had always been obedient and well-behaved. Her only transgression was falling in love with Gu Minjuan. They often met in secret, and if anything came up, I would pretend to be my sister to cover for them. Gradually, seeing that I was never discovered, my sister grew bolder, and I even ended up attending some banquets in her stead. But now, he wanted me to take her place in the palace. He was in pain and despair then, speaking without thinking. I didn't blame him, but I would always remember the words he said. In any case, my sister had always been good to me. In this situation, all 3 of us were innocent. I wanted to create an opportunity for them to be alone, hoping they could clear the air. But seeing my intention, my sister just stroked my hair helplessly. Ning, I am now the emperor's consort Yun, and Minjuan is your husband. We will have no more contact, and there is nothing left to say. Your sister only hopes that you and he and the Su family can all be safe and sound. Everything from the past was just a fleeting illusion. We must all look forward. Look forward. But the aura of melancholy around my sister was so thick, she didn't seem like someone who was looking forward. I sat distractedly in the carriage back to the Gu estate when I suddenly heard a commotion outside. Lifting the curtain, I saw not far away a procession with gongs and drums, and a high-spirited young man on a tall horse adorned with red silk. This year's new top scholar is truly handsome. I hear he's just 20, so young and promising. Indeed, I wonder which young lady will have the good fortune to be the top scholar's wife. Jungyun Qin, please accept this humble girl's flower. Qin Xiuming's gaze inadvertently shifted over. The moment our eyes were about to meet, I dropped the curtain in a panic. What's wrong? Gu Minjuan, who had been resting with his eyes closed, opened them at the sound. Nothing. He gave a faint, Young Master Chin's success is also a credit to the Su family. Father-in-law must be very pleased. Qin Xiuming was a distant cousin of the Su family. His family was not wealthy, and he had come to the capital 2 years ago, staying with the Su family and receiving much help from my father with his studies. I didn't respond, but he, contrary to his usual self, continued. In the past, when you weren't with your sister, you were always with him, weren't you? Did you know that the first thing he did after passing the exam was to go to the Su estate to propose marriage? A throb shot through my temple. I truly did not know. But Gu Minjuan misinterpreted my surprised expression. Marrying me also tore you two apart, didn't it? I recognized his malice in that moment. He was in pain, so he didn't want me to be happy either. My lord, be careful with your words. There is nothing between him and me, and I never thought of marrying him. The carriage suddenly jolted. He reached out to steady me. I grabbed the seat to steady myself, then shifted away, putting more distance between us. But he, contrary to his usual self, pulled me into his arms. The curtain was blown open by the wind. Sitting in Gu Minjuan's lap, I saw in the distance the sorrowful smile on Qin Xiuming's face as he looked at me. You may have no feelings for him, but he may not feel the same about you. It's better to be decisive and cut off his hopes. The carriage turned a corner, and Qin Xiuming disappeared from view. I rose from Gu Minjuan's lap and sighed softly. My lord should know that from the day the imperial edict for our marriage was issued, all thoughts, proper or not, were already severed. For both Qin Xiuming and myself, I didn't look at him again, nor did I catch the seemingly desolate expression on his face. We had been married for over 3 months, but had not consummated our marriage. Even though the old madam knew Gu Minjuan had a knot in his heart, she was still a mother. After dropping hints to me, she had a long talk with Gu Minjuan. It was unavoidable. Gu Minjuan had no choice but to move his bedding from the study back to the bedroom. That evening, Cheng Bai bathed me with a worried look on her face. Seeing her sighing, I found it amusing. My lady, you're still in the mood to laugh. The master's heart isn't with you, so why must you suffer this? You think too much? I sank deeper into the tub. It's just a marriage, they're all like this. A parent's command, a matchmaker's word, what choice do we have? If it weren't Gu Minjuan today, it would be someone else. As long as these men don't interfere with my fortune, I'll let them be. But it would be different if it were young Master Qin. Cheng Bai, I cut her off. Never say such things again. When I returned to the room, Gu Minjuan was sitting at the desk reading, a robe draped over his shoulders. The light is dim, it will hurt your eyes. Read it tomorrow. His face lifted from the book and fell upon me as I was undressing. In a few days, it will be your 18th birthday. Is there anything you want? Thank you for remembering, my lord. There's no need to trouble yourself. I had run around to several shops during the day and was so tired, I just wanted to fall asleep. Mother has been talking to you a lot lately. Has she been pressuring you about having children? I lay down, wrapped myself in the blanket, and forced my eyes open to look at him. Mother is very good to me. She won't pressure me, and you don't have to worry about me pressuring you. I remember we discussed this topic shortly after we were married. Whether he wanted a child, didn't want one, or who he wanted to bear it for him, that was his business. I would never say another word about it. He was taken aback, his face a little grim. He put down his book and got into bed. I heard a rustling beside me. He lay there stiffly, prim and proper, not moving a muscle. Seeing he had no other intentions, I drifted off to sleep peacefully. The scent of bitter bamboo from him lingered in the air. It wasn't unpleasant, at least. A few days passed peacefully like this, and then the news came that my sister had been named Empress. The reason, my sister was pregnant. The coronation ceremony was followed by a palace banquet. The emperor specifically ordered Gu Minjuan and me to attend. Unexpectedly, we ran into Qin Xiuming at the palace gate. Greetings, Lord Qin. Enning, since when did you become so distant with me? His voice was bitter, and I deliberately ignored the thick, undeniable emotion in his eyes. I had told Gu Minjuan there was nothing between us. That wasn't entirely true. The truth was, Qin Xiuming had once laid his passionate love before me, and I had ultimately failed him. He had once asked me himself, Enning, if I achieve high honors, would you be willing to be the top scholar's wife? We had spent 2 years together, and I had always seen him as an older brother, never developing any other feelings. Brother Xiuming, don't joke like that. His face flushed red. I'm serious. Enning, I truly adore you. If you are willing, I will spend my life loving only you, cherishing you like a treasure, and never letting you suffer the slightest grievance. I was startled by him and began to avoid him, intentionally or not. After the metropolitan examination, I heard his elderly mother was unwell, and he bid me a hasty farewell to rush home. He told me to take my time to consider, saying that this was a matter of mutual affection and he would never force me. He said that if he failed the exam this time, he would never mention it again. But before the results were announced, before he returned to the capital, I was married to Gu Minjuan. To say I had regrets, there weren't many. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, looking at the man sharing my bed but not my dreams, I would selfishly think that if I had married Qin Xiuming, at least I would have been genuinely cherished. With time, feelings could grow. I might not have been immune to falling for Qin Xiuming. But as for Gu Minjuan, I smiled with relief. Enning is a married woman now. Naturally, I must be more sensible. Lord Qin seems to have lost some weight. I hear you have just returned to the capital after managing the floods in the southwest. You must rest well and take care of your health. Qin Xiuming also smiled, his eyes gentle as ever. Yes, I'll listen to Enning. Ahem, Gu Minjuan's dry cough cut in. He glanced at me, then shot a sideways look at Qin Xiuming, and without a word, took my hand and pulled me through the palace gate. I didn't want to embarrass him in public, so I let him pull me along. The officials we passed along the way all complimented us. Lord Gu and his wife are truly a deeply loving couple. At the palace, men and women were seated separately. A year had passed, and perhaps due to her pregnancy, my sister had filled out a bit. But seeing her today, I felt the sorrow in her eyes was even deeper. Especially when she saw me. She took my hand, her eyes misty, looking as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Sister, what's wrong? She finally couldn't hold it in, and a tear slid down her cheek. To prevent others from noticing, she quickly wiped it away and forced a smile. It's nothing. It's just been too long since I've seen Enning. I'm just too happy today. But this was definitely not the look of someone crying tears of joy. She wouldn't say, so I couldn't press her. My sister must have been wronged in the palace. Even so, she didn't forget to give the new cosmetics from Zui Xiang Li that I had brought to the wives of the officials, promoting them for me. When I sent people out to procure goods, I happened upon this scented balm from Zui Xiang Li. The fragrance is elegant and pleasant, and His Majesty is also very fond of it. I believe good things should be shared, so today I present it to you all as a gift. Everyone hurriedly expressed their thanks. I knew the first step of launching this new product was a success. When it came to the capital, the money of these noble ladies and wives was the easiest to earn. I contentedly bid my sister farewell and left the hall, only to see Gu Minjuan being supported out by two young eunuchs, completely drunk. Why did you drink so much? Just as I finished speaking, Qin Xiuming also staggered out. I couldn't help but frown, quickly asking the eunuchs if they had misbehaved before the emperor. How could they get drunk at the emperor's banquet? Lady Gu, His Majesty was in high spirits and had a few extra cups with the two lords. They did not misbehave. His Majesty has instructed us to ensure the two lords are returned safely to their estates. I breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you for your trouble, eunuch. Enning, my lady. Gu Minjuan suddenly pushed away the two eunuchs supporting him and lunged straight at me. I hurriedly caught him. His head rested on my shoulder, so heavy I could barely move. He was still muttering some drunken nonsense I couldn't quite make out. Eunuch, please help Lord Gu up. To my surprise, Gu Minjuan, who was usually the most self-restrained and proper man, was acting like a child, insisting that I be the one to support him. I flexed my arm, which he had just pained, and stood aside, letting the eunuchs carry him into the carriage. Qin Xiuming watched quietly from the side the entire time. I nodded to him in acknowledgement and was about to get into the carriage myself when he called out to me. Enning. I turned to look at him. He said quietly, as before, you don't love him at all. I smiled. Love is a great luxury. Gu Minjuan drank the sobering soup and soon fell into a deep sleep. In the middle of the night, I was woken by the heat from his furnace-like body, only to find him holding me tightly in his arms, his limbs wrapped around me. I couldn't break free. I called out softly, Gu Minjuan, loosen your grip. I can't breathe. He didn't move a muscle. I struggled with all my might, and he finally stirred, his sleepy eyes looking down at me in his arms. Then he leaned down directly, his urgent kisses landing on my neck. Gu Minjuan, wake up. He seemed not to hear me, rolling on top of me and starting to undo my clothes. Yan. In that moment, it was as if I had been struck on the head. My mind went blank, followed by a chilling cold that spread through my body. A sudden bite on my chest shocked me back to my senses. Slap, a slap sent his head turning to the side. I don't know where the strength came from, but I shoved him off me, haphazardly wrapped myself in a robe, and ran out of the room. The moment I fled the room, I suddenly realized I had nowhere to go. The night wind was cold. It chilled me to the bone, but my mind was exceptionally clear. The gatekeeper, not knowing what was happening, opened the main gate for me. The moment I stepped out, Gu Minjuan's voice came from behind. "Stop the young mistress." Hearing his voice, I broke into a run. At least for tonight, I was unwilling to stay in that place. I sat in Zui Xiangli for the entire night. As soon as the sun rose, someone was knocking on the door downstairs. I thought it was Gu Minjuan and told the shop boy not to let him in. The boy said hesitantly, "Miss, it's Lord Qin." Qin Shuming came in, his eyes bloodshot and dark circles underneath, clearly having not slept all night either. "Inning, I've thought of a way. I will request an official post outside the capital from His Majesty. I'll take you with me, all right? I know you're not happy. I just want you to be happy. Inning, come with me." "Where does Lord Qin intend to take my wife?" Gu Minjuan's cold, hard voice suddenly cut in. I had been naive. How could a mere shop boy stop him? His face was ashen as he stared at me. "Where is Inning going?" Qin Shuming shielded me behind him. "Lord Gu, you and I are old acquaintances. We both know the truth of many things. Inning is the most innocent one here. I implore you, let her go." "HMPH," Gu Minjuan sneered. "Inning is the wife I married with all due ceremony. Since she married me, there is no turning back. Qin Shuming, you have repeatedly offended my wife, and I have tolerated it time and again. Do you truly believe I dare not touch you?" The ruthlessness in Gu Minjuan's words sent a shiver down my spine. It didn't sound like an empty threat. Lord Qin was only joking. Why must the Marquis take it so seriously? "Inning." Qin Shuming looked at me in disbelief as I stepped forward. I gave a bitter smile. "Cousin, everyone has their own fate. Perhaps this is mine. Don't cause any more trouble. You have great ambitions and a bright future ahead of you. Don't act on impulse." I followed Gu Minjuan back to the estate in silence. As soon as we entered, I ordered the maids to prepare a side room for me. "Don't be willful, Inning." I lowered my eyes. "My lord worries too much. Rongning wouldn't dare. I am just used to sleeping alone." The maids, hearing my order, were about to go and prepare the room. "Don't you dare!" Gu Minjuan shouted at them. He was usually gentle, and his sudden harshness startled everyone. The maids looked at him, then at me in a difficult position. I understood. I lowered my head obediently. "Since the Marquis forbids it, then forget it. Go about your business." I was about to return to my room, but he grabbed my wrist and pulled me in front of him. I couldn't read his emotions. "Inning, is this about last night? I was drunk yesterday. My mind wasn't clear. It is Rongning who should apologize to the Marquis. It was Rongning who spoiled the Marquis's mood and troubled you to go to such lengths to find me." The hand on my wrist tightened abruptly, and I grunted in pain. I had never been able to see anyone clearly. And as Gu Minjuan threw me onto the bed and pressed down on me, I understood him even less. It wasn't that I hadn't thought this day would come, but I hadn't expected it to come so soon. I didn't resist anymore, letting him tear and bite at me. He forced me to look at him. With red-rimmed eyes, I endured the undeniable tearing pain and looked at him. And then what? Then he covered my eyes with his palm. His voice was pained. "Inning, don't be like this." He leaned down and kissed my lips. It was a rare moment of tenderness. When our intertwined breaths parted again, he had finally softened, returning to the gentle young lord he once was. "Inning, you are my wife. I will not think of others anymore. I will be responsible for your entire life." Having had a taste, Gu Minjuan began to pull me into his bed night after night. At first, I was very uncomfortable. Later, when I began to appreciate some of the pleasures, I became exhausted from his insatiable demands. During lunch with old Madame Gu, she noticed my haggard appearance and quietly scolded Gu Minjuan for his lack of restraint, ordering someone to brew me a tonic soup. "I hear you are always out and about during the day. Is it for something important?" "It's nothing major, just a few dowry shops that I go to check on from time to time. The managers can handle those things. You should take good care of your body." I put down my soup. Mother is right. Inning has been thoughtless. I should also stay home more to help share Mother's burdens. Old Madame Gu was taken aback. "That's not what I meant." "I understand, Mother. Qi Yun said that after getting married, I had become a doormat, letting Gu Minjuan mold me however he pleased without resistance. I just didn't want to waste any more emotion and energy on my marriage. If going along with him meant less trouble and more energy for my business, then so be it. In the 4 years since I took over these businesses, Lei Ju and Zui Xiangli had opened over 20 branches across several major prefectures. The big boss of these shops, Yunhee, had also made a name for herself in the business world. I had no other hobbies, I just liked making money. Recently, Chi Yun said she wanted to open a bookstore. I was very supportive, so I became even busier. Coupled with my promise to old Madame Gu to help with household affairs, I had no energy left to deal with Gu Minjuan at night. The contraceptive soup I secretly drank every day was about to pickle me from the inside out. A wife who bore no children after 3 years of marriage could be divorced by her husband. Unfortunately, our marriage was decreed by the emperor, so he couldn't divorce me. But Gu Minjuan couldn't possibly not want children. When that time came, he would have a legitimate reason to make me settle down. I had it all planned out. The only thing I hadn't expected was that a sated Gu Minjuan would become so difficult to handle. The news of my sister giving birth came quickly. She summoned me to the palace again. Because of the child, she seemed more gentle and loving. She took my hand. "I hear Minjuan is very good to you. Now I can rest assured." I smiled. "Sister, you don't need to worry about me. Now that you have given birth to an imperial heir, His Majesty will surely cherish you even more. Life in the palace is difficult. You must take good care of yourself." As I said this, her expression darkened again. She gently stroked the baby's face in her arms. "You two have been married for a year now. You should hurry up and have a child. If he takes another woman in the future, you'll have something to rely on." My sister had grown up reading the Precepts for Women and Lessons for Women, believing that a woman's support was her husband and her children. My support has always been myself. I saw my sister pause, then slowly look at me, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and relief. "Inning, just live a good life outside. It was I who wronged you." As we spoke, a palace maid announced that the emperor was coming to Fengyi Palace for lunch, and that since I was here, I could join them. But my sister suddenly became flustered. She handed the baby to the wet nurse, took my hand, her expression anxious. "Inning, go back. The palace rules are strict. Encountering His Majesty might bring trouble upon you. Go back quickly." I didn't understand, but I was led out of the palace by the maids she had instructed. When I returned to the estate from the palace, Gu Minjuan summoned me to the study. He handed me a book, his eyes sizing me up without a word. "I have already removed the inappropriate chapters from this volume. Have them print it according to this." Chi Yun and I had selected a batch of books to be published, but to avoid any unsuitable content, I had asked Gu Minjuan to review them. Gu Minjuan was well-versed in both literature and military strategy. His scholarship was beyond question. He had taken it seriously. "Thank you, my lord." I took the book and was about to leave when he called me back. I looked at him, puzzled, and saw him hesitate, as if wanting to say something. I understood instantly. Sister is doing well. His Majesty dotes on her even more now. My lord need not worry. He was suddenly stunned, looking at me quietly for a long moment before saying softly, "I was going to say, I tore my sleeve while I was out today. Inning was skilled at embroidery in her maiden days. Could you help me mend it?" I frowned. There is plenty of silver in the estate's accounts. Since the sleeve is torn, why not throw it away and buy a new one? The light in his eyes dimmed a little, but he was still stubborn. "The fabric of this robe is rare, a tribute from the state of Daluo. It would be a pity to throw it away." I sighed and told him to give me the robe. He brightened up again, happily taking off his outer robe and giving it to me. "Then I shall trouble you, my lady." There was no trouble to speak of. There were professional embroiderers in the estate. As soon as I stepped out, I had someone summon one and instructed her to meticulously mend Gu Minjuan's treasured robe. That night, Gu Minjuan foolishly stroked the mended spot on the sleeve, a look of utter satisfaction on his face. I couldn't help but ask, "Do you like this robe so much, my husband?" I was just marveling at Inning's exquisite embroidery skills. He smiled at me. I hesitated for a moment before saying, "My lord is mistaken. This was mended by an embroiderer. Inning has not held a needle in a long time and was afraid of ruining it, but it is good that my lord is satisfied." Gu Minjuan said nothing more. He silently hung the robe back up, then without a word, lifted me up and threw me onto the bed. "I haven't bathed yet, Gu Minjuan. I'll help you wash later. Let go of me, let go." He pinned down my struggling legs and began to undo my clothes. "Inning, it's time we had a child." After I was exhausted, he carried me to the bathtub and carefully washed me. I leaned on the edge of the tub and asked him, "Since you want a child, and I can't seem to have one. Why don't I choose a few good concubines for you?" He was silent, then carried me back to the bed and took me fiercely once more. "Miss, should I still bring the medicine?" Gu Minjuan had left early in the morning. Cheng Bai whispered to me as she came in to attend to me. I rolled over in bed, so weak I could barely get up. My voice was hoarse when I spoke. "Yes." "What is Ning drinking?" I was instantly wide awake. "Just some tonic." Gu Minjuan stood before the screen, staring at me. "My lady's constitution is indeed a bit weak. It's good to take some tonic. I have a better prescription here. You should drink this one." I frowned, my gaze clashing with his. He was smiling, but there was a chill in his smile. I knew he must have found out. Or perhaps he had known all along. I didn't want to beat around the bush anymore. "Is it enough if I just bear the Marquis a child?" "I only want Ning's child." I nodded. "I understand." I stopped drinking the contraceptive soup, and even enthusiastically drank a large bowl of fertility medicine after every encounter. He was unhappy again. I didn't know why Gu Minjuan had become so difficult to please. Qin Shuming ultimately chose to take a post outside the capital. The emperor cherished his talent and was reluctant to let him go. But Qin Shuming chose the poorest and most remote prefecture in the Great Zhou. The memorial he presented to the emperor was filled with his ambition to bring prosperity to the people, and he even made a life or death pledge to ensure that the people of that prefecture would have enough to eat within 10 years. The emperor, moved by his ambition, finally approved. When I heard the news, I arranged to go to the Qinglong Temple outside the city with Miss Qi to pray for blessings. Gu Minjuan tagged along eagerly. I asked for a protective talisman for Qin Shuming. Gu Minjuan, suppressing his jealousy, begged me with a forced smile. "Ning, could you ask for one for your husband as well? Since my husband is here himself, it is naturally more sincere to ask for it yourself." He then insisted on pulling me to kneel in the temple of marriage. He was quite devout, to be joined as husband and wife, to grow old together and never part. I smiled again. "Rest assured, my lord, our marriage was decreed by the emperor. This is how it will be for the rest of our lives." He seemed genuinely hurt by my words. His eyes gradually welled up, the corners turning red. "Ning, this is not good." "What is there to be good or not good about? You know very well that all I think about now is you. What more do you want from me?" I was also confused. "Then what do you want from me?" "The emperor wanted to marry my sister, so he betrothed me to you. I had no choice. I don't cause trouble. I try my best to fulfill my duties as a wife. I'm even willing to find you concubines. You talk in your sleep at night, holding me and calling my sister's name. I pretend not to hear. You say you want me to bear you a child, so I drink fertility medicine every day. Gu Minjuan, what more do you want from me to be satisfied?" "It's not like that. Ning, I have let go. The one I love now is you. I just want you to also." "Love?" I found it both laughable and sad. "Gu Minjuan, why do you cling to these things?" On the way back, Gu Minjuan was silent, sitting quietly on the other side of the carriage. I think I really made him angry this time. But since things were already like this, what good would it do to humor him and say I liked him too? Back at the Gu estate, to avoid any unnecessary misunderstandings, I only wrote a farewell letter to Qin Shuming, enclosing the talisman I had obtained. After the bookstore opened, its business boomed due to its good location near 2 private schools and several inns, attracting many scholars who came to the capital for exams. Qi Yun watched the people coming and going from the bookstore entrance from Leiju and sighed. The monopoly of knowledge is the most tragic thing for a country. Fewer and fewer scholars from humble backgrounds are able to rise up. I only hope our small effort can be of some use to them, as long as it doesn't waste the great price you paid for those rare books. We provide the conditions, the rest is up to their own fortune. The emperor named the little prince the crown prince, giving him the name Yanlin. I heard that the emperor had intended to appoint Gu Minjuan as the crown prince's grand tutor during the morning court session, but Gu Minjuan had refused. He came back and told me specifically. I flipped through the account book and nodded. I don't understand matters of the court. The Marquis has his own considerations. After all, serving the ruler is like serving a tiger. It's better not to be too conspicuous. I knew I hadn't said what he wanted to hear. He was already used to my coldness and just smiled indifferently. Ning is right. I will definitely not let the Gu family fall into danger. The next day, another edict came from the palace, summoning me. But I had just seen my sister in the palace not long ago. Why was I being summoned again so soon? Gu Minjuan was on leave today. He walked me to the gate, gave me a few words of advice, but seemed a little uneasy. Why is Eunuch Su here today? Where is Eunuch Lin from the Empress's side? Eunuch Su was one of the Emperor's personal attendants. I thought perhaps the Emperor wanted to surprise my sister and had sent his own man to fetch me. Eunuch Su gave Gu Minjuan the explanation I had expected. But once inside the palace, Eunuch Su did not take me to Fengyi Palace. Instead, he led me to the imperial study. I hesitated at the door, but Eunuch Su only gave me a gentle smile. The Emperor's voice came from within the study. "Come in." His voice was a bit hoarse and weary. "This subject pays her respects to your majesty." I knelt respectfully. This was the first time I had met the Emperor alone. To be honest, I didn't even know what he looked like. But it was he who, in order to separate my sister and Gu Minjuan, had personally issued the edict to marry me to him. I heard him suddenly start coughing, as if he were ill. He didn't tell me to rise, coughing for a long while before letting out a heavy breath. "Su Rongning, this subject is here." "Su Rongning," he called my name again. I was a little confused and couldn't help but look up at him. When our eyes met, a sense of familiarity washed over me. His face was no less handsome than Gu Minjuan's, but at this moment, his eyes were filled with sorrow. "Your Majesty, this subject is Su Rongning." His face, already pale, turned as white as snow. "The one at the incense appreciation gathering, that was you. The one who danced the dance upon the lotus was also you." I was stunned. "This subject is dull-witted and does not understand what your Majesty is saying. 2 years ago, did you go to Dangzhou?" "Dangzhou." I had been to many places in the past 2 years to open branch stores. I had indeed been to Dangzhou. And on the road in Dangzhou, we had encountered 3 heavily injured men. But when I had my accompanying physician treat them, 2 of them stopped the physician from removing the 3rd man's mask. And after I saw the token peeking out from that man's waist, I knew their identities were not simple. To avoid trouble, I had the physician simply stop their bleeding, then sent them to a local clinic and left. I said nothing, but the Emperor began to laugh, tears welling in his eyes. "So it was you. It was I who personally gave you away to another. Ha ha ha. Your Majesty." "Wrong. It was all wrong, Rongning. I got it all wrong." Looking at the nearly crazed Emperor, I finally remembered the incense appreciation gathering he mentioned. That was a year ago. I remembered it because that gathering was different from the usual ones. My sister, who was supposed to attend, was only thinking of seeing Gu Minjuan off as he was leaving the capital for disaster relief in Heian, so she begged me to go in her place. I had no reason to refuse her. I had grown up, and my appearance and figure were even more similar to hers. With a veil on, only those very close to us could tell us apart. I had thought I just needed to sit there quietly, drink tea, and wait for the banquet to end. But something went wrong. The Grand Princess suddenly arrived, and looking at the garden full of beautiful young ladies, was struck with a whim and had each of them perform a talent. My sister could play chess and the zither, but I could not. I could dance. That dance upon the lotus, I had only ever performed it at that one gathering. The Emperor was there that time. The Emperor seemed very ill. He tried to walk towards me, but started coughing violently again. "Your Majesty, should I summon the imperial physician?" He waved his hand at me as he coughed, his thin frame swaying. I waited for him to calm down again, my knees numb from kneeling. He finally seemed to notice I was still kneeling and told me to rise. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Rongning." He had called my name many times since I entered the study. "This subject is here." My lowered gaze caught his fist clenching and unclenching, until finally, all that was left was a long sigh from him. "Gu Minjuan, is he good to you? Do you resent me for decreeing your marriage?" A woman's intuition told me that if I expressed even a hint of dissatisfaction with this marriage at this moment, the Emperor would immediately issue an edict for Gu Minjuan and me to divorce. And then what? To be locked away within the high palace walls like my sister. I lowered my eyes and said softly, "Lord Gu, he treats me very well. This subject has yet to thank your Majesty for finding me such a good match." "A good match?" The Emperor gave a sorrowful laugh. "Does Rongning like him?" I had wanted to lie and say I did, but in the end, I only managed to say, "Whether this subject likes Lord Gu or not, this is the best possible outcome now." The Emperor was silent for a long time, one hand propped on the desk, his body leaning against it as he slowly closed his eyes. If you do not like him, why force it? Indeed, why force it? He should ask himself that question. He himself had caused this situation. Who was there to blame? He rubbed his temples and waved his hand. "Go back, Rongning. Do not come to the palace again, just live freely outside. This was the only time in my life I ever saw the emperor. It seemed nothing was said. And yet, it seemed everything was said. I finally understood the sorrow that deepened on my sister's face day by day. One wrong step, and every step after is wrong. Since it could not be undone, we could only make the best of it. I returned to the Gu estate in a daze, and saw Gu Minjuan waiting at the gate. Why are you back so late? Did anyone in the palace give you trouble? Sister's child is adorable and well-behaved. I played with him for a while longer. He draped his outer robe over my shoulders and gently supported my waist. Enning need not be envious. Our child will surely be just as adorable and well-behaved. A child. This time, Gu Minjuan would truly get his wish. Summon the physician. Gu Minjuan didn't react at first. What? I said, summon the physician. His eyes suddenly widened in disbelief, and joy instantly flooded his face. Enning, you. He wanted to hug me, but didn't dare touch me. He stumbled out, yelling for his attendant to fetch a physician at top speed. He was as happy as a child, staying by my side for every moment, holding my hand. The physician took my pulse and said I was 2 months pregnant. Gu Minjuan gave the physician a large red envelope and stared at my belly as if he could bore a hole through it. Enning, I'm going to be a father. It was my first pregnancy, and the feeling was quite miraculous. My palm pressed against my belly, a life was gestating inside. In the future, she would grow, from a swaddled infant to a person who could stand tall in the world. When Qi Yun found out I was pregnant, she secretly cursed Gu Minjuan. Now you absolutely cannot overexert yourself. If you need anything, just call me. I'm not that delicate. I don't feel anything right now. Qi Yun was on high alert. 10 months of pregnancy is a great trial for a woman. You cannot be careless. All right, I will be careful. You can rest assured. As we were talking, Gu Minjuan returned from court. He didn't come wagging his tail around me like usual. Instead, his face was grave. Seeing Qi Yun, he didn't rush to send her away. Instead, he bowed to her, startling her. Lord Gu, what is the meaning of this? The southern Yue have invaded our borders. At court today, His Majesty has appointed me to lead the expedition. This journey could take 2 or 3 months at the shortest, or 2 or 3 years at the longest. Enning and Miss Qi are the closest of friends. During my absence, I hope Miss Qi can look after her. Qi Yun was shocked. I was stunned as well. After Qi Yun left, I finally came back to my senses. It was His Majesty who sent you. Gu Minjuan's spirits were low. He held me gently. I inherited the title of Marquis of Ningyuan. I eat the emperor's grain and share his worries. Moreover, the southern Yue have invaded, damaging our nation's prestige and harming our people. In this time of crisis, I must step forward. I volunteered for this mission today, Enning. This is my responsibility. My heart felt as if it had been gently struck by something, a moment of understanding. For this past year, I had seen Gu Minjuan as someone to be dealt with, but I had overlooked his identity. He also had his own responsibilities and duties. And a moment of relief. At least it wasn't the emperor forcing him onto the battlefield. Everyone was, in fact, rational, especially the one sitting on the high throne. Enning, give me something to hold on to. I looked up from his embrace. What kind of something? He was still obsessed. He pestered me to embroider the character, Ning, on the cuff of every one of his inner shirts. When I saw him off, he held my hand for a long time, unwilling to let go. Enning, wait for me to come back. I nodded and smiled at him. My lord, may you have a swift and triumphant return. I just didn't expect it to be such a hard-fought battle. He had been gone for 7 months when my time came to give birth. I gave birth to a lovely daughter. Old Madame Gu held her and adored her. Gu Minjuan had said before he left that if it was a boy, he would be named Gu Zheng, and if a girl, Gu Jin. Tonics from the palace arrived in a steady stream, and on the baby's 100th day, the emperor named her a commandery princess. But Gu Minjuan still had not returned. My father said that the battlefront was at a stalemate. A traitor had emerged in Gu Minjuan's army, and they had been heavily struck by the enemy. They had suffered heavy losses and were now short on supplies, making it difficult to hold on. My daughter was chewing on the stick of her rattle drum. I pulled it out and shook it gently. I understand. My father sighed. My child, even though you two were forced into marriage, you have now borne him a child. How can you still be so cold to him? I laughed. So if I were to wail and cry in despair right now, would he be able to come back? You. My father stormed off, flicking his sleeves. I also knew he was a man of deep passion. My sister had been frail since childhood. To save her, he had ridden 1,000 miles alone to find a rare herb, despite just returning from battle, covered in wounds. I stood up and went to Leiju. The southern Yue have invaded Yangzhou. Gu Minjuan is now defending Yangzhou City. This place is not prosperous to begin with, and the traitor burning the grain supplies was unexpected. It will take time for the court to dispatch emergency aid. I instructed the managers, the rise and fall of the nation is the duty of every person. The money we have earned today is the day to use it. After Yangzhou is Pingzhou. Pingzhou is prosperous, with 2 Leiju and 1 Qingfeng Hall, with considerable profits. But it's not enough to supply the army. Today, I must trouble you all to have a few trusted people from the banks and money houses urgently deliver funds to Pingzhou. I have already written to manager Li of Leiju and Pingzhou to arrange for the procurement of grain and supplies. As you command, boss. Also, when procuring, spread the reputation of Leiju and Qingfeng Hall, especially among the major merchant houses. If anyone asks, say that Boss Yunhee is spontaneously raising supplies for the army. She never makes a losing deal. The managers understood instantly. We don't know how long this war will last. It's better to get more people to help. Due to our business needs, our communication network was extensive, and we had more efficient trade routes. The managers in Pingzhou were very capable. Within 5 days, they had already transported a batch of supplies to Yangzhou, relieving their urgent need. After that, a steady stream of supplies was sent over. With this guarantee, the morale of the soldiers soared. 3 months later, the news of Gu Minjuan's triumphant return arrived. Along with it came the reputation of Boss Yun, his great righteousness. The emperor personally inscribed the first pavilion of the capital and bestowed it upon Leiju, also rewarding the major businesses that had contributed to the war effort. For a time, Leiju, Qingfeng Hall, and Zuixiang Li were bustling with customers. The managers were swamped with work. In the afternoon, the small courtyard was quiet. I was planning to strike while the iron was hot and open a few more branches. I was determined to take the title of richest person from my uncle. My daughter lay in her cradle, gurgling and chewing on her fingers. I was on the floor, studying the locations for the new shops. Footsteps in the courtyard approached, and a shadow fell over me. I looked up and saw Gu Minjuan, dressed in his military armor, standing quietly by the door. "Inning, I'm home,"